Charlani here. Thanks so much for tuning in to Charlani TV. I am going to show you how I make our family favorite Haupia cupcakes. So if you want to know how I do it, keep on watching. The ingredients are super simple. I've got some heavy whipping cream. I've got coconut milk. The brand does not matter, just as long as it's unsweetened coconut milk, because you'll see sugar there. We will sweeten it up ourselves. I've got white cake mix. You can use yellow too. Vanilla pudding, vanilla extract, couple of eggs, and then we've got some cornstarch. And then I'll be using my handy dandy KitchenAid mixer. I have had this for many years. Absolutely love it. And I'll be using the mixer and whisk attachment. So let's get started. Betty Crocker is my go-to, but you can use Duncan Hines. Any of the cake mixes will work. I just read the back of the box. I follow the directions for the baking time. So what I'm doing is I'm actually looking here for the temperature of the oven and the amount of time. And because as you'll see, I'm gonna be making jumbo cupcakes, so I add about 5 to 10 minutes onto the baking times that it says, just because they're a little bit bigger than regular cupcakes. And I'll adjust my baking time accordingly. So in goes the mix, and then we're gonna add in the coconut milk. Now, any brand of coconut milk works best. I personally don't have a favorite. The only important thing here is that you use unsweetened coconut milk, because we're gonna sweeten it up ourselves with sugar. And oh my gosh, it smells so good. So I always shake it in the can before I open it, but then I also give it a little bit of a twirl with my chopstick, just to make sure there's not a whole bunch of clumps. I really don't think it matters too much, but I do it anyways because I'd rather it be smooth. This was not a smooth transition. It was really hard to record and pour and not spill at the same time, as you can see, but that's okay. We clean our messes, right? So now all I need are egg whites. You can buy them in a carton. I prefer just to use fresh eggs, and I crack it right down the center, and then I actually use the shells themselves to separate the egg whites from the yolk. And you can always use the egg yolks for something else. You can add them into your shakes if that is your thing. You can add them to scrambled eggs that you're making later that day, maybe next day, but you can find something to do with those egg yolks, so it isn't wasteful. So now I've got my egg yolks that I will use for the baking. I'm just gonna put these in the fridge and see if maybe Rob will have them in his shake later. And then in goes the egg whites. And I like the whites because it makes the actual cupcake, it's just all white, and I absolutely love that look. Next up, we need 2/3 cup of water. I just take it straight from the fridge. And then we also need 2/3 cup of milk. I use 1% milk. Any fat percentage milk would do well here. I have used skim or fat-free milk, and you can use that, but you'll have not as dense of a cupcake, and we want them to be dense for this cupcake here. All right, so now we're going to get into the pudding, and here is my tip for the pudding. This should be the very last thing that you put into your mixing bowl, because you don't want it to sit with liquid for too long before you start mixing it up, or it'll get really clumpy. So I take my 4 tablespoons out of the bag. It's probably about half the bag, maybe 2/3. So you can save it and add that pudding into another cake mix that you're gonna make down the road, because adding pudding to any of the cake mixes, Duncan Hines, Betty Crocker, Pillsbury, if you add a little bit of pudding powder to it, it makes it super moist. Any cake mix, it's so yummy. And then I would just add a couple of tablespoons extra of milk just to get it to be that pudding texture. But that and cake batter, absolutely amazing. So about halfway through mixing, I will pull this off because you can kind of see that there's powder that my mixing paddle doesn't get. So I'll just come in with my spatula, I'll pop this off here, and I'll just give it kind of a good mixing myself to make sure that anything that is stuck to the bottom, that everything gets incorporated here. The last thing you want is to bite into a cupcake and to have like a clump of powder in there. So just get in there and mix it up yourself, get it back on the mixer, add another minute or so, and get everything nice and incorporated. So it's at this point where you have to decide, do you want to do jumbo cupcakes? That's what I'm going to show you here. But you can also totally do regular size cupcakes as well. Obviously, you'll get more of the regular size cupcakes rather than the jumbos. But either one works really, really well for these cupcakes. So you just need to choose which one you want. You can use a measuring cup. You can use a scooper. However, will be easiest for you to put in equal amounts of batter. I eyeball it. I go about 2/3 of the way through, and a lot of times they come out just fine. It's not that much of a big deal if some of your cupcakes are a little smaller than the others. But what I'll do at the very end is when I get towards the last of the batter, I'll fill the last cupcake, and then I'll kind of go through and make sure that everything is somewhat uniform, and we fill up any of those cups that might be missing a little bit. And then I go through with a paper towel and I just wipe off the pan. This is super unnecessary because all you have to do is let a little bit of water sit on it and they'll come right out. But I like to clean it up just a little bit. And into the oven they go. So again, depending on what size cupcake you have decided to go with, just bake according to whatever the directions are on the box. Now the cupcakes are baking in the oven, so now it's time to make the frosting. And I just use, you guys, this is literally the easiest frosting topping, and it is beautiful, but heavy whipping cream and a little bit of sugar, in my opinion, is the way to go. This works for any flavor of cupcake. It is definitely my favorite, and it's really, really easy to make. And I am very aware that having a KitchenAid mixer in this process makes it super, super easy. But I'm pretty sure that nowadays any of the handheld mixers, they all come with one of these whisking tools. It just makes it so much easier. And if you don't have that, just get your regular good old whisker and get a little elbow grease in there and start mixing everything up. So when we're about halfway through and you can kind of start to see the peaks form in the whipping cream, now it is time to add in the sugar. And I go just pretty slowly. You don't want to dump the whole thing in all at once, but I do halfway through, add half the sugar, and then get it whisked in and incorporated in there, and then add in the other half because you need 1 full cup of sugar. Y'all, this is not a healthy recipe, but look how beautiful it is, and it smells so good. So also my tip here is if it feels or if it tastes a little bit grainy when you go in to taste it, mix it up a little bit more, get it a little bit more incorporated in there, and it should be a very smooth consistency. If you kind of taste the granules or feel the granules of the sugar, you just haven't mixed it well enough. In the fridge it goes. By the way, peppermint mocha cold brew coffee, add that to your coffee, add a little bit of that whipping cream, heaven. So now it's time to go in and check on your cupcakes. I insert that toothpick. If it comes out nice and clean, you know that your cupcakes are ready to go. And these look amazing. And I wish this had like smell-o-vision because it smells ridiculous. So now we let the cupcakes cool down, and while we're doing that, let's start the Haupia. Now the cupcakes we're gonna need to handle, you'll see that in a minute, so it's a perfect amount of time to get the Haupia going. You'll see that I had just a couple of extra tablespoons of coconut milk in that can. I just added it in. It's not a big deal at all. What we want to do here is just get the coconut milk heated up just a little bit, and then we're going to add in the cornstarch. The key here is whisk, 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 whisk. Just keep on whisking, a lot like the heavy whipping cream. You just want to keep on whisking here. The thicker you want your Haupia, the more cornstarch you'll add. I find that 5 to 6 tablespoons is perfect for me. So that's what I do. And then in goes the sugar. Again, whisk, whisk, whisk. It's very, very important that you just keep whisking it because you don't want your Haupia to, number one, stick to the bottom, burn, and you don't want it to clump up on you. Then after I turn the heat off, it is the consistency that I want. Then I go in with my vanilla extract, get this mixed up in here, and then we are good to go. So as the Haupia cools down, it'll start to get really thick. So you just gotta play around with it. And if you want it to be more custard-like or more pudding-like, you would do more or less of the cornstarch, but it's all preference. So, okay, now it is time to kind of put everything together. I go in with a pointy knife and I just carve out the center. I go about 2/3 of the way down and I just make a nice little hole there, and I do this for all of the cupcakes. I like to do everything all at once. I am very intentional focus on the task at hand. So carve everything out all at one time. That way you can then go back in with the Haupia, then with your whipping cream, and kind of do like assembly line. And all of these little extra pieces that we're carving out, we can use them for a dump cake. And if you don't know what a dump cake is, it is basically a bowl where you dump all of the extras of the cupcakes, and then you can add some Haupia and then top it off with some of the whipped cream. And it's kind of like you have just a full bowl of yumminess. So now it's time to add the Haupia into these little holes that we've made. And I like to fill up each of the holes completely to the very top. Now, I do this in exactly as you're seeing it here. Turn on your oven, make the batter, get the cupcakes into the oven because you want them to have enough time for them to cool down by the time you get to the process of carving out those holes and then adding in the Haupia here. So get your cupcakes baking. While they're baking, that's a good time to make your whipping cream. Take your cupcakes out so that they can cool on your countertop, then start to make the Haupia. When the Haupia is done, then you can go in and carve out the holes, and then it'll be ready for the Haupia to get in there. The point is so that your cupcakes are cool enough to handle, yet still warm enough to kind of incorporate that Haupia. But they look so yummy! And they're obviously, again, not perfect, but this is where we kind of pretty it up. Now here's the thing. I like this raw look. I just kind of take my spoon and I make it kind of looks like a rose petal up at the top, and I just kind of do a little swirly swirl. But I like the raw look of this. You can put this whipping cream in a bag and pipe it on here to make different designs. It's also really fun to put, if this is like a girly party, then you can do pink food coloring, or you can do glitter sprinkles as the topping. But I personally just like the light colors, and they just look so pretty. The other thing is, so a lot of times when you read other recipes for Haupia cupcakes, they have a hint of lemon. So you can absolutely add a little bit of lemon extract. You could also add coconut flakes to your frosting, but this is the way that we love it. I think it's light and refreshing, and it's not overpowering with coconut. It's not overpowering with any other flavor. And these are just absolute perfection. So in the fridge they go, and this, again, preference. If you like them warm, eat them warm. We personally like them nice and chilled because the Haupia will get thickened up in there, and the frosting is nice and cool, and oh, they are just absolutely amazing. And really good for any occasion at all. These are definitely a family favorite. And so you'll see, I didn't want to bite into this while I was filming because gross. Because these are pretty big. These are jumbo cupcakes. So, but if you look, you'll see that it's very custardy in there. You've got the whipped cream. It is just absolute heaven. Absolute heaven. I've typed out the actual recipe for Haupia cupcakes in the description of this video, so go ahead and take a look. And also note the number of cupcakes that are actually made with this recipe, because it is a lot. I hope that you've liked this video, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up. And if you are not subscribed to Charlani TV, I would love it if you did. Have a great day.